What if I told you that one simple setting could completely change how you play Fortnite forever? Because whether or not you use the new simple edit setting, this game will never be the same. For over 5 years, Fortnite's building and editing mechanics have remained the same. And with those mechanics being so difficult, players who already know how to build keep getting better, and players who want to learn how to build have absolutely no chance. So Epic Games created a whole new game mode to keep both sides of the player base happy: Zero Build. But the problem with Zero Build is that the one unique mechanic that set this game apart was completely abandoned. So after 7 years, Fortnite finally came up with a solution: Simple Edit. But when I turned it on, I realized that Simple Edit is a lot more complicated than I thought. Instead of just shrinking the skill gap, Simple Edit is raising the skill ceiling higher than ever before. This clip wasn't even humanly possible before they added this setting into the game. So you might be thinking, if it's so broken, why aren't pro players using it? Well, not only is Simple Edit disabled in competitive, but Fortnite has been out for over 7 years now, so literally everyone is good at normal editing at this point. Even my neighbor's weird looking cat could full box you, so there's no reason to throw away all those hours of practice. Unless you're doing it for the content, and that's where I come in. So this week, I decided to throw all of my muscle memory out the window just to see if Fortnite's new Simple Edit setting could really be the future. But little did I know, I was gonna regret this decision, because by the end of day 1, I completely forgot how to triple edit, and there was no going back from here. So I started day 1 of the challenge without expecting much. Simple Edit still felt completely foreign to me, so I focused more on my aim than my edits. And although that strategy led me to winning one of my very first games of the day, it was a complete waste of time, as this went directly against the point of the challenge, since I should have been spending my time learning how to use Simple Edit instead of learning how to avoid it. Regardless, this win gave me the confidence I needed for the rest of the day. But that confidence didn't last long, as things immediately began to fall apart. After losing games back to back to back, I realized I needed a better way to practice. Battle Royale just wasn't cutting it. You don't get enough opportunities to fight, and every time you die, you're stuck waiting for 5 minutes before you can even try again. For a challenge like this, wasting that much time wasn't an option. So I decided to switch things up and queued into some 1v1s instead. And now you might think that this was the perfect solution for learning how to use this new mechanic, but there was one huge problem with my practice. I noticed that every single edit I made gave my opponents a free shot to my head, and that got me killed over and over again. When you hear me complain about this, you might wonder why I don't just choose a different edit for each of these situations. And that's because Simple Edit has 2 huge problems. It gives you a significantly smaller amount of edit options, and it has significantly more delay. And this extra time it takes to reset the wall makes these peaks impossible to do without your opponent dealing counter damage. And because the entire point of editing walls is to take advantage of desync, the lack of the very useful side window edit basically forced me to use peanut butter edits instead. I've always avoided peanut butter edits on purpose, but now I'm forced to build a whole playstyle around them. Now this may not seem like a huge issue to you, because clearly there are very amazing players out there who are doing completely fine without the side window edit. But one very important thing that I realized during this challenge was that everyone who's succeeding with Simple Edit was already a good player in the first place. Take Martaz for example. He's an ex-pro, widely considered as one of the smartest players, if not the smartest player in the game. You can see here that even without Simple Edit, he's still infinitely faster than me when I use it, and this fact alone would make my switch to Simple Edit much more difficult than his. While I was complaining about the problems with the new setting, all he did was adapt, so instead of resetting his walls to block shots after editing, he's just able to rely on pure speed. You can even see in this clip that he makes an open edit which would normally get me killed, but because he's just so fast, he's able to get away with it, taking 0 return damage. But that's not to say that learning Simple Edit was easy for him either, because even though he looks a lot faster, he even says himself that this new setting might just be too fast.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't even know what I did there. That was even like way too fast for me.
So switching to the super fast and aggressive playstyle that you need to take advantage of when using Simple Edit would be yet another obstacle that would take the rest of the week to solve. However, I began to notice some real improvements on day 2. Going into day 2, I had already spent about 5 hours using Simple Edit, and while I was improving fast, I realized I was losing my normal editing skills even faster. It was terrifying how quickly my muscle memory was slipping away. Now I understand why everyone who tries this challenge either gives up after a single day or does it on controller to not lose all the muscle memory they've built up over the years. But I was still determined to keep going. I decided it was time to really understand how Simple Edit works. Despite the name, the mechanics behind the setting are far more complicated than I expected. Take cone edits for example. With regular edits, you simply select a tile to raise that part of the cone. You can even do it with 2 or 3 tiles, and it makes a lot of sense. But with Simple Edit, cone edits are an absolute nightmare. If you look at any of the flat spaces, it lifts the opposite side of the cone, So if you like spamming quad edits, that makes it very easy because you don't have to reach all the way to the other side, which is great until you want to edit down on someone. The only way you can edit down on someone is either grabbing the edit from the far side of the cone or making a one tile edit, which gives you a much smaller angle to work with. And that makes this window double edit literally impossible to do if you're using a cone. So with cones being so much more limited with simple edits, you might think that simple edit is completely useless because cones are crucial for piece control. But one thing that simple edit does way better than regular edits is ramp edits. Regular ramp edits were easily the most difficult thing for me to learn when I first started playing Fortnite because it is the only build piece that cannot be edited just by clicking it. Every edit you can do with a ramp requires you to drag across tiles, which makes it much more sluggish and difficult to use in box fights compared to a cone. But with simple edit, the roles are reversed. Ramp edits are super easy now. As long as you're looking somewhere around the middle of the ramp, it will flip in the direction you're facing, and if you select one of the edges, it does a ramp cut. So as I learned the fundamentals of simple edit, I noticed a recurring pattern, where every time I discover some sort of disadvantage while using it, I figure out some other way to make up for it. But this time, it's an actual bug with the game. All of the other problems I talked about before don't even come close to this one. The other problems could be fixed by simply being better at the game, but this one is an actual serious bug that Epic Games needs to fix immediately. When I try to pull out my shotgun, it just pulls out my hands like I'm about to freaking box Jake Paul or something. But apparently it's a real bug, so unfortunately the only thing I can do about it right now is deal with it. And if you thought that was the only bug with simple edit, you would be completely wrong because sometimes my shotgun just does not do damage. I don't even get it. I don't get it. How? Billion-dollar company, by the way. This is the type of gameplay that I like to see. What the fuck is this? For the next 2 days, I continued to work on my mechanics, but on day 5, it was finally time to hop back into Battle Royale to see if I can get a legitimate win using the new setting. That was my first game of the day, by the way. So I ended up calling up my friend to play some duos because I don't know if I can handle playing solo Fortnite for 7 days straight. You'd assume that because we're playing duos, we'd have a 2 times better chance of winning a game, but if you do the math, 2 times 0% is still 0. Even though I spent those last couple days training, that improvement did not translate into in-game skill, as the entire day was spent chopping people up with the sword, getting chopped by people with the sword, and getting shit on by 12-year-olds. With only 2 days left of the challenge, I was really questioning if simple edit was even worth using. And this realization ended up changing the entire trajectory of this week's challenge. You see, I was never really bad at the game mechanically. Sure, I couldn't pull off 9 quad edits in a row without simple edit, but if you watch any competitive gameplay, you'll notice that mechanics will only take you so far. Rotations, game sense, positioning, and aim become far more important once you've mastered the basics of building. Now, Peterbot might not be the best example of this since he's still super good mechanically, but I'd argue that he's a lot more well known for his inhuman aim and awareness. And like most players at or above my skill level, building and editing were no longer my primary concern. So if I committed the rest of the week only to learn simple edit, the best case scenario is that I'd get as good as I was before, and that would be a completely pointless goal to achieve. It's like learning how to play with my monitor upside down. The only thing I can say after learning that is that no matter how I flip it, I'm still gonna be ploopy. It makes a lot more sense to train something that affects my overall skill level instead of being equally shit on 2 different settings. I'm stuck in the ground. So that's when it hit me. We might have all overlooked another game-changing feature that Fortnite added at the same time as simple edit. The new movement mechanics. And you might be thinking, nobody overlooked the new movement. Everyone thinks it's ass. And that's exactly my point. I've been playing this season every day since it came out, and since day 1, I still haven't seen anyone at my skill level use the new movement in a way that's actually effective. While I couldn't match the mechanical consistency of players who've been editing and building for years, this new movement literally just came out. So instead of trying to learn a skill that everyone already mastered, I decided to spend the last 2 days figuring out how to make the most out of Fortnite's newest edition. So I started day 6 with 2 goals in mind: learn techniques not even Martaz knows about, and ultimately win a ranked game using the new movement. The first move I'm gonna learn is this sprint side jump wall jump shot. Fortnite just recently added this new jump mechanic that allows you to sprint jump 2 tiles instead of 1.5, and combined with the new wall jump mechanic, this guy was able to pull off this crazy move to hit anyone 1 box above him. The hardest part about this move was the side jump, as my muscle memory is telling me to land on a floor, but after accidentally mantling a few times, I started to get the hang of it and got it pretty good after about 5 minutes. The second move was this double edit into a wall jump into a roll, and surprisingly, this one was a lot easier, and I managed to pull it off pretty clean in under 2 minutes. And just as I thought this challenge couldn't get any easier, the third move was just a simple high wall double wall jump wall run, and that took me about a minute to learn. However, the fourth move was unexpectedly one of the hardest moves I learned just because of how precise you need to be. In order to do the wall jump instead of a mantle or a wall run, you need to look slightly far enough to the side. Then after you get that down, you need to land perfectly on the next layer, and then you need to end it off with a ramp and a wall edit. Not sure how this ended up being one of the hardest moves since it looks so easy, but I'm glad I learned it since this one just feels like it could be really useful in game. The next move is a wall run 90, and it was definitely the easiest one in the video. I did it first try, and with no practice, I feel like I'm pretty consistent with it. But again, since it's so easy, I also feel like this could actually be useful. After this move, I had to skip a few because they patched the EJ dash, which a lot of these moves rely on. So I did one last thing before trying my newly learned skills against real players, and that was just messing around a bit with the new movement because I still felt like a lot of these moves were still too hard for how little they accomplish. And unsurprisingly, those feelings were justified because even the simpler moves were almost impossible to implement into my 1v1 gameplay, but I will say after switching back to regular edits, I finally feel like I'm in control again. But just like any other time I felt optimistic about something, that did not last long at all because implementing these movement mechanics was turning out to be way harder than I initially thought. With day 6 coming to a close, day 7 was my last chance to take advantage of the new moves I learned, but after several consecutive losses in a row, doing anything with these new moves seemed impossible. So really my main goal at this point was to just get a win because I haven't gotten a win since the first day of this challenge. Clearly Diamond 3 ranked was too hard for me, so I thought it would be a good idea to hop into Unreal ranked to get a win. Now this might sound extremely stupid, but this is because in Fortnite Reload, basically anyone can get into the highest rank in the game. And the proof is speaking to you right now. Earlier in this video, I was just talking about how at a certain point, mechanics become much less important than aim, game sense, and rotation. And after just 3 games, I got my first ranked win of the season with my below average aim, game sense, and rotation. I guess the harsh reality is that if you suck at Fortnite like I do, there's no setting that can magically make you better at the game. But if you want to see me try to go pro with no skill, watch this video next.